Okay guys, moving on. Earlier this year, both AMC and Showtime brought some of their biggest series to Netflix, the world's largest streaming service. These series include The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, Dead City, Kevin Can F Himself, the first 8 seasons of Dexter, all of Fear the Walking Dead, and Yellow Jackets, to name a few. And I have to say, at the time I found that move a bit perplexing, since one of the biggest reasons AMC canceled The Walking Dead in the first place was to get their main show off of that streamer and exclusively on their own platform. The same can kind of be said for Paramount after it dumped a ton of money into Paramount Plus and then incorporated Showtime into the fold just a little bit over a year ago. Of course, I realized that getting exclusive access to their own content wasn't the main reason for deciding to purge these series from Netflix, and both AMC and Showtime, as well as many other competitors to Netflix, certainly have more bargaining power than they did just a couple of years ago when Netflix was the only game in town. But I feel like it's worth taking a closer look at this decision and trying to understand why certain streaming companies and studios are more inclined to share their content with Netflix now, despite having their own thriving platforms. For those of you who don't know, this is primarily based around the concept of the Netflix effect, the term that Netflix itself has been pushing lately based on Netflix's somewhat unique ability to drive viewership to create cultural moments around television programming. Essentially breaking it down, the Netflix effect is shorthand for business and executive insiders trying to sell this idea that we're still somewhat living in a monoculture, where something like a movie or TV show can capture enough attention that it becomes kind of like a universally understood thing in our day-to-day lives.
I called for help twice, and not a "fuck you, what do you need," or nothing.
And to be fair, I feel like we've seen a lot of examples from this when it comes to Netflix and the way they're able to push their programming onto the masses. Just in the last couple of years, we've seen the rise and super popularity of shows like Stranger Things, Squid Game, and even more older and established television shows like The Office and Suits. Netflix itself has even pushed this concept to industry insiders, gloating that Netflix ad-supported plan has more than 40 million monthly active users. Over 40% of all signups are ad-supported markets and are younger than linear television audiences, with a median age of 37. Over 70% of Netflix's ad-supported members watch for more than 10 hours a month, which is 15% higher than the nearest competitor, according to Nielsen. More than half of ad-supported members watch Netflix more than 20 hours per month.
My mom praising me for sitting in front of the laptop all day and working hard. Me who was just binge watching on Netflix.
So without even having to go into specifics of everything, it is clear that Netflix has some specific brand loyalty, as it's not only the world's largest streamer, but its customers continue to watch Netflix for longer and more than its competitors, even when those customers are forced to watch ads in the year of our Lord 2024. So when it comes to pre-existing shows being put on Netflix in this modern day syndication plan, platforms like AMC and Showtime are certainly aiming for a Suits level success. The idea that Yellow Jackets or Interview with the Vampire can garner enough attention on Netflix to turn these properties into cultural touchstones in the same way that we saw with Dexter or Breaking Bad or even The Walking Dead back in their heyday. You even kind of see this with the statement that AMC's executives put out on their own earlier this year. Quoting, "This agreement puts our higher quality shows in front of a vast audience of Netflix subscribers, with AMC brand clearly represented. These curated titles are also being strategically windowed to drive interest in current and upcoming seasons on our direct-to-consumers partnered platforms. We believe this significant expansion of our Netflix relationship will drive viewership and engagement on Netflix, while also raising awareness and interest on our award-winning content on AMC-branded partnered platforms across our distribution ecosystem."
Day 1 of quarantine. I'm gonna read my Bible more and grow in my relationship with God. Day 12. Congratulations, you've completed Netflix.
Now, here's the question I have in all of this. Is it possible especially in this increasingly fragmented world where all types of niche interests and perspectives have somewhat begun to erode the public trust in even the non-abstract concepts like truth and fact. Is it possible for the Netflix effect to be created? Meaning, if you just throw enough money and advertising into something, is it enough to capture the attention of a large enough portion of people, or is this type of thing something that kind of has to be created organically? I would argue that this type of thing has to happen organically. It doesn't really matter how big or far-reaching a platform like Netflix is. I'm not really of the opinion that they or anybody else can astroturf any particular show or movie into a lasting cultural moment. Sure, with enough money and unique forms of marketing, whether it's the absurdity of the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight, or the allegations of fake memes for the Bird Box back before all of this discussion took place, it's certainly possible for a specific movie, TV show, or live event to kind of be elevated to a level of cultural awareness that is not often seen in our modern day-to-day lives. But that doesn't mean that those moments are truly meaningful or have a cultural impact to the vast majority of people that keeps them relevant for days, weeks, months, or even years. My point here is really that while I think that the Netflix effect is real and very much a tangible thing, I don't think that Netflix themselves even have the power to utilize all their algorithms and market share and everything to kind of push something beyond the limits of what the people or culture is willing to accept at any given time.
Before we go, I wanted to discuss one last thing. I've been thinking about this a lot recently when it comes to 2025 and Netflix, and how Netflix is barreling towards an issue they have with the content lineup that they currently have, the heavy hitters, as it were. Where in 2025, we're going to be seeing the end of not only Squid Game, but also Stranger Things, Cobra Kai, You, Big Mouth, as well as the second season of Wednesday, which Wednesday was a phenomenal success for them, but you always run the risk of too much time has passed, people move on. It's not necessarily, like, it might not continue to be the same heavy hitter as it was previously. I think one of the things that we saw recently this past year was the second season of Monster. They did the first season, which was only supposed to be one thing, of the Dahmer show with Evan Peters. They did a second season, which I think garnered a lot of praise and a lot of controversy, but wasn't necessarily on the same level as Dahmer. So Wednesday could have that problem as well. What are your thoughts on Netflix's continued reliance on, what are your thoughts on Netflix's continued success if all of these main shows hit and end in 2025? And what do they replace them with? Is there anything that you think could be a replacement? Or do you think that they'll start shedding subscribers once all these shows end?
Well, you've got to think that somebody at their head office is in charge of making sure that doesn't happen. So you have to think that they're either going to pick, because obviously, the thing with Netflix is that they do actually pander to multiple different audiences at once. And that is it's quite impressive that they've been able to do that on such a steady basis. They've often got serial killer documentaries and stuff coming out. They've often got new anime projects and stuff coming out. They've often got continued old established IPs. I don't want to call Squid Game an established old IP, but they've been doing a lot of things. They pick up a lot of old dead shows and revive them. Mm-hmm. For me, I think one of the big problems they've got going into this is it's sort of a same problem that a lot of wrestling shows run into the issue of, which is you rely too heavily on your old established names to bring in people to watch, but because then they're so focused on doing this, they're not building up enough new talent, and then suddenly a load of them retire and there's just this big empty void of people that are kind of interesting but you're not emotionally invested in them. Now, I mentioned Alice in Borderland earlier. This is the other problem that gets caused by this. You have a successful 2-season show. Seem to come to a pretty good conclusion. I know it is adapted from a manga, and I know that the manga actually does work on the show with them. But they're now doing a 3rd season of that after a pretty feelingly conclusive ending. What do you do with that? Well, you're going to unearth a load of the stuff that you did at the end of the last season. You're going to now propel that in a new direction. It's either going to undo everything that they just did, or it's going to continue and sort of redo it again, or are they going to put new characters in there? And it's not going to feel right if that's the case. I think if they're going to keep burning off some of these things, they've either got to work on some spin-offs, which is why I think Squid Game is a logical one to do that with if they're going to start doing universes. But even so, that's not a 2025 project. It's probably not even a 2026 project. That's probably a 2027 project. So unless we start getting maybe like a schedule of things that are going to come out, they haven't told us of a whole lot that's happening, to my knowledge, that's coming over the next couple of years.
No, I feel like they're making a huge deal about all the returning shows for 2025. I mean, they even have a trailer out where they're like, our 3 biggest shows ever are coming back in 2025. We have Squid Game, we have Stranger Things, and Wednesday season 2, right? But I think it is telling. You're right. They've been talking about spin-offs for pretty much all of their biggest shows, with Stranger Things spin-offs, Cobra Kai, certainly there's a lot of discussion about those types of spin-offs. Squid Game universe with David Fincher coming in and doing an Americanized version of it. But again, yeah, you're right. Like they run into an issue where they're going to have this stuff is being boiled over in 2025 and is going to lead to probably a very good year for them. But they don't have anything, at least on the horizon right now. Of course, we're recording this on January 4th of 2025.
Good for me.
Yeah, right. So like, there's a lot that could actually occur, and there's a lot that can transpire with brand new shows, literally like scorching the earth on fire in the next coming months or sometime in 2026. But as of right now, all their biggest shows are ending, or some of their biggest shows are ending with no real game plan going forward. I would say that this is why, even recently, they've been looking into the live television format with the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight, and at least here in the States, they put football on Christmas Day, like live streaming content for people to watch, because at least right now, live streaming content or sports or anything is what people actively watch and will continue to watch. Like, they'll watch ads, they'll watch anything in order to watch something live. I think they're trying to replace it with that. But as I've discussed on the channel before, there's an issue with trying to make or create some kind of a cultural effect of a TV show. Netflix, for all of their algorithms and for all the money in the world, they probably can't, or I think it's impossible for them to recreate the success of something like Suits, something that they acquire for nothing and becomes like this global phenomenon that everyone's watching for months and months and months on end and will continue to subscribe to watch it, right? Or even something like Squid Game. The Squid Game didn't really think about it at all, had to catch up to it, and garner that success in the aftermath. They had no idea that it was going to do the numbers that it did. Probably the same thing with Wednesday. I think that's an issue that they're going to have, and if nothing can really replace it, then I think they're going to find themselves against a rock and a hard place, especially since in 2024, enthusiasm and subscriptions were down overall for streaming networks by like 20 or something percent.
There are too many of them.
There are too many of them, and Netflix has an advantage over that because they're the biggest in the world and they offer the most content, like you were talking about before. But I think people are still going, like, at a certain point, even Netflix has a breaking point. So
Yeah, because it's also the most expensive one out of the lot of them.
Right, exactly.
That isn't our economy's shot, so most people are going to drop the most expensive one. I mean, here's the other thing that Netflix could also do. We're seeing an influx of YouTube stars becoming stars on other platforms, whether it be Netflix, Amazon. So, I know you've got your Jake Pauls and stuff like that were doing the live boxing fights, and you've got your Logan Pauls in the WWE. Then you have you've got Mr. Beast doing stuff with Amazon Prime. It would not surprise me at all to start seeing Netflix purchasing channels like, Watcher for the Ghost Files and all that kind of stuff. Because then they've already got content that is pretty much easy. Not easy. I don't want to downplay the stuff that they do, but it's kind of easy enough. If Netflix threw enough money at them and said, go film some ghost hunts in these places, do it over the next 3 months, and get it edited and bring it back. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I would also not be surprised to see a price hike in 2025 for Netflix to cover them for the influx of shit that they're not going to have.
You know what? I love it. Oh, price hikes are a given for sure. But I love this idea because I wasn't even thinking about that. But yeah, like we might get to a point where Netflix starts deciding that they can't compete. They're just going to cannibalize. They're going to, they're like you said, there's too many subscriptions networks right now. What is stopping Netflix from going, hey, yeah, we want Watcher. That's cheap. Like that's cheap. When people watch it, they'll pour it over here and they'll keep watching the content we make for this. What's to stop them from say, hey, AMC Network over here in the States, like they have The Walking Dead, they have Interview with the Vampire, they have Dark Winds, they have all these shows that people watch still. We'll just grab all that and put it on our platform and like keep pushing out that content that loyal fan bases, like millions of people who stayed tuned to that for this is like, come over here, we'll raise the price of Netflix, but your subscription to AMC or Shudder or whatever it is now a part of the Netflix subscription, and that's the way they continue to make money. I think that's actually brilliant.
It does solve the problem as well of too many subscription services. So
right, consolidation. Oh, I hadn't even thought of consolidation, but that makes too much sense.
How long before we start seeing should I open it or should I keep it sealed on Netflix?
Hey, they bought Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, so yeah. Should I open it or should I keep it sealed? No, that's brilliant. I'm certainly going to need to think about that more and discuss it. Yeah, I think either consolidation or live content is what they're aiming towards. But when you're the largest streaming network ever and you're worth $400 billion, it's just as likely as anything else that you will just, hey, can't compete with people, can't keep people's attention, just start buying up everything that you can afford.
Well, here's the thing, actually. I mean, they technically started doing it because WWE, for instance, had their own WWE network. They then got eaten by Peacock. I don't know what the situation was with Peacock overseas or whatever, because we don't get it over here. But what I will say is they've just eaten that, and that has gone all onto Netflix now. I assume it's all live in America as well, and that's going to have weekly new content for them with monthly reviews and all this other stuff. So that's a large source of wrestling income and stuff sorted right there. So they have just taken a bunch of eyes from that market and that demographic. So it's not like they haven't obviously been talking about this.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I think you're right. I think that's certainly something that they're thinking about. I thought that the WWE stuff was more about the live content that people watch, but it's obviously one and the same. It's a consolidation effort to garner audiences from other platforms to come and stay on Netflix. And that's how they make their money.
Also because it's also given them that massive back catalogue of their previously done shows as well, so it's still going to get people viewing those things, albeit not as many as it will be watching the live stuff. But it did just eat that library.
Right, and that's absolutely massive. That's really interesting. Fuck, I'm gonna have to rework my notes to incorporate that, but I love it. No, but like that's good. I'm not gonna put that in the video I'm gonna put on Real Talk, but that's going to go in the scripted thing because it's great. It's such a great concept.
Made me look good.
Yeah, no, I no, yeah, that's really good. Because why would I? Because there was even talk.
No.
There was talk years ago about them buying Paramount, and Paramount's still in financial trouble.
Well, Paramount, if anything, is probably going to go to Amazon because you can already get a subscription through Amazon to Paramount.
Yeah, but that's a little different. I mean, that's a little different. But I Amazon buying a studio is not unheard of. Like Amazon or Apple buying Paramount would make sense. It's just I don't know if it's going to happen.
But even with all that being said, I do want at least to highlight the quality of Interview with the Vampire and Yellow Jackets. One of the reasons I'm bringing up this discussion at all is because those two shows are freaking fantastic. They deserve to be on the level as certain things like Suits, You, Cobra Kai, Stranger Things, and all the other stuff that Netflix has really pushed over the last several years, like the last decade or so. Check them out if you haven't. They're very good. Still, the idea that Netflix can push this, or any real distributor or studio, whatever, can push this, I just don't see it happening. I feel like the Netflix effect is something that just spontaneously happens through social media, real groundswell type of support and enthusiasm, and people just gravitate towards something. If there is something that pops off for one reason or another, you need to see whether or not it lasts in the cultural consciousness. And if it doesn't, I think that was just kind of astroturfed. What are your thoughts on this? Tell me in the comments section below. Like the video. We'll discuss it there.